Hey boys and girls, Ken Smith Fishing. So, as a lot of you know, I've not been on the water the last couple of weeks, which is why I've not completed boat reviews and why I hadn't been fishing any, because we're very pregnant. Actually, by the time you guys see this video, if everything goes as planned, baby boy number 2 will be here with us in Richardson, Texas. So, hopefully sometime in the near future, right after that, I can get back on the water, but we're going to spend a little family time with the new toddler in the house. And by the way, Hollis had his first ER visit today, fell off the front porch. But he's all good as well. So quite an eventful weekend for us. So this video, so I've had an opportunity because of me being home to do a bunch of stuff, including the video you guys just watched, a bunch of you, about forward imaging sonar. I found that really interesting. And I know that somewhere in the next few weeks I'm going to be buying a boat. And when I'm buying a boat, I am not buying another Ranger. I know that for sure. And I know from when I bought my last boat, I did a bunch of prop videos. I'll post one of them right there, where I was trying to figure out the right prop to run on that boat. And I know a little bit because of that, and I thought I knew quite a bit. But I've been chasing somebody for probably 5 or 6 weeks to do a video, and they finally said yes to me. And I'm not going to announce who it is yet. But he's a guy who knows his props really well. And he said, well, what do you know about props? And I said, well, I know this and this and this and this. And he said, what about this. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know very much about props apparently. So he suggested I watch some other videos, and actually the other videos are some of them are Mercury racing videos, and suggested some things for me to read up on. And I've been doing that. And before I do that video with him, I want to do a couple of videos for you guys. And I want to ask you guys to share back with me, if you could sit down with a prop expert, what would you ask him? So I thought it would be smart to kind of level set what I know and what I have learned over the last few weeks. And I thought I'd share it with you guys. So I know there's at least 2 videos worth of footage here before I interview him. And I want you guys' feedback before I interview him. So let's just kind of go through this. So when I did my video reviews, when I did the video test on mine was a 2018 Ranger 521c with a 250 Pro XS, a 4-stroke. It was one of the very first 4-strokes in Texas. Matter of fact, my serial number is a bunch of numbers and then 000077. So it was one of the very first. I didn't even know it was a 4-stroke when it left the Ranger factory. And what I looked at on that boat was basically a Fury 3 and a Fury 4 and a couple different versions of pitches on those props. And you see here the 2 props that I looked at. But I always wondered about a trophy or about a bunch of stuff. And so I fished Bass Club days like everybody else, and we had a guy in the Bass Club who ran a chopper prop sometime. And I never knew what all that different stuff made. And so I started doing some research. So first I started at the Mercury website, and it was immediate confusion. There's 21 different props available on the Mercury website. And then there is a prop selector. And by the way, this is curious to me. So I went through the prop selector on the Mercury website, and it says boats and manufacturer. You can see all the inputs you do here when you go through this process. And look at that. It spit out a Tempest Plus for my boat, which made me scratch my head because they suggested I run a Fury on it. So now I'm wondering, okay, well, am I running the right prop even on my 4-stroke motor? And I'm going to talk to the right people to figure that out. So this was interesting in and of itself. But then I went over to Mercury Racing, and there's another 10, let's see, 5, 10, 13, another 15. Now, obviously, you're not going to run a cleaver blade on a bass boat, I don't think. But there were even more props over on the Mercury Racing. And then there's a bunch of other prop makers, right? I mean, I was just messing around with Mercury, but there's Michigan Wheel, and I mean, I own a Power Tech. Yamaha obviously makes props. By the way, that Shero Marine is that new prop that's got that loop around it. Doesn't have an ear. It's got a loop. That's crazy. It's a $4,000 or $5,000 prop. I don't even know if they're making them from outboards yet, but my point is there's a ton of other props out there. And I wanted to get an understanding of what I should be looking for. So to do that, you got to understand some really basic theories. And truthfully, by the way, so this is a science, right? Making a prop is a science. And if we all ran identical boats with identical loads, it would be really easy. Somebody would make one perfect prop and we would all run that same prop. But the problem is we don't all run the same. And I mean, it goes back to the old Mary Ann or Ginger, right? And until I found this picture, I was always Mary Ann. I had never seen Ginger in a bikini. But nonetheless, there's different things for everybody. Matter of fact, probably even somebody out there that would throw Miss Howell into that conversation. No, not me. Still Mary Ann. But my point is we all run lots of different kinds of boats, lots of different loads on the boats. We got guys who are looking for fuel economy, and believe it or not, there's a very significant difference in something very basic in props to get better fuel economy, which, by the way, if you carry multiple props and you're not tournament fishing and you're not worrying about running fast, I'm going to explain to you in this video a very simple change you can make to your prop to get the best possible gas mileage out of your prop. But the point is, because we run different boats, different loads, and we have different desires, some of us run big water, some of us run small water, some of us run a lot of real shallow water. I always think back to my buddies in the Arkansas River that are always trying to get back into places, and they want a boat that not only gives them bow lift, but also gives them stern lift. And there's things in a prop that will lift the stern on a boat. There's things on a prop that will act like a jack plate. There's some amazing things. There's a lot of science in it, but there's some art in it too. And the art part comes in on the different types of boats you run, and then also the different lower units you run. Now, most of us in the Mercury world are running the Torque Master. The Sport Master is a different animal. We're going to talk about the difference of those in these videos as well. So, the things we need to kind of understand in the science side of this equation is a basic something called the push-pull theory, which is what makes a prop push a boat, what makes an airplane prop fly an airplane, what makes your fan blow air onto you. Angle of attack, the basic implications of blade count, rake of a prop, the cupping of a prop, blade diameter, and the implications of blade diameter, basic prop styles. Now, most of us kind of run one style of prop, and we're going to talk about those as well. Skew on a prop, ventilation on a prop, the impact of barrel length, the impact of barrel flare, again, lower unit design, and we've already talked about it, but pitch as well. So let's dive into a few of those in these video, and then we'll finish up on at least part 2, and there might be 3 parts, but again, I need y'all's feedback for what you want me to ask a prop expert who's going to spend some time with us. So let's just talk real quick about the kind of the basics of a prop. So let's look at the left-hand picture here, and you'll see up there at about 10 o'clock the blade root. That's where the blade meets the hub, if you will, or the barrel is actually the more proper term, because the hub, as you see over there to the right at 2 o'clock, that's actually what's inside. The spindles are inside the hub as well. Now, this is funny to me, but I had never looked at a prop and thought about what part of the prop went in the water first, but obviously it's the thin cutting edge. Again, it's just something I had never thought to. So that's known as the leading edge, and then the back end of it, the fatter part of it, is the trailing edge. Now move over to the other side, and we'll talk more about this in that push-pull theory in a second, but at 10 o'clock on that prop on the right, you see the negative pressure side of the prop, and then down below, about 6 o'clock, you see the positive pressure side. So the positive is on the back of the prop, if you will, the back-facing part, and the negative is on the front-facing part. Exhaust vents, which we've talked about a little bit in the past, which are significant really only in taking off and whether you want some air going over the prop blades to help you build RPMs to get on the pad faster, the barrel tube we talked about, and then the cup or the little cupping that's done to the tip of the blade as well. Now, just again, kind of general terminology, and I found this picture and I love that prop. So that's the diameter, right? The width of the bullet, make a circle and cut across that circle in any straight line. That's the diameter of the prop. And generally speaking, prop diameter increases for slower boats with slower RPMs. Now, and then they generally decrease for as speed and or RPMs increase. However, diameter will increase. So if you're running a 13 3/4 inch, you would go up prop if you have a lower unit or a boat that actually surfaces that prop. We'll talk more about that when we talk about that Sportmaster, but that Sportmaster is designed to surface and bring most of that prop or a lot of that prop out of the water versus a prop that runs mostly submerged. So once you get a motor, talk about those go fast boats we looked at, the Bullet and the Ballistic. Those boats can go faster if you put a surfacing prop on them and a surfacing lower unit. You remember, and we'll talk more about this, there was some conversation about how much fat, so there's a limitation for speed, very technical, and we'll talk about it, with the Torquemaster lower unit. If you want to go faster than 84, 85, 86 miles an hour, they will tell you you need to go to a Sportmaster lower unit, and it's a different animal. So we'll talk more about that as well, and we're going to talk to our prop expert about that as well. So last concept for part 1 of this series. And when I say series, what I mean is these 3 or 4 videos we're going to do leading up to us having that conversation with our prop expert. And it's a super simple concept, and it's back to that pitch conversation. So pitch is the distance a propeller would move theoretically on one rotation, how far it would move the boat forward. And I found this example online. It really makes sense to me. If you think about putting a wood screw into a piece of wood and turning it one turn, however far that wood screw goes into that piece of wood, assuming it bites and makes a full rotation, goes fully in, that would be, if you will, that part of that screw's pitch. We'll have this conversation later, but you can have, and most props are progressive pitch props. Here's our example of that. So with a 23-inch prop, you basically see if that prop turned one revolution, it would push the boat forward 23 inches, okay? Now, I mentioned this a second ago, and by the way, we'll talk about slip later. It's another term we'll talk about, but just as a real quick, oh, by the way, slip is how much you lose of that 23 inches is basically what that is. So there are constant pitch props, and this is a real good one, right? That pitch is the same all the way through, or there are progressive pitch props. Most of our props that we run are progressive pitch props, and what it allows it to do is it almost like the boat changes gears, if you will. So when you throttle down on it, it catches those, the water comes across those lower pitched portions of the prop to help you get that boat up on plane. And then because it's a progressive pitch, as you pick up RPMs, that water, and it's the wrong word, but it's kind of channeled to a different part of the prop, or a different part of the prop really starts making a difference. And that's where that progressive pitch prop really starts making you maximize your go forward. So by the way, on the way they measure our props, it's the average of those pitches is what it would be. So on this one, 17, 18, 19, 20, I would guess this would be about a 19 pitch prop, because that would be about the average across that prop, and that's not exactly the way to do that, but for purposes of this conversation, that'll make sense. So let's stop there, and if you're still interested in this, I will do part 2 next week, I hope, according to what's going on here at the house. We're going to dive further into the rest of the terminology. We're going to talk a little bit more or a lot more about kind of the theory of that push-pull and what makes a prop work. And then we're going to start talking about different props for different applications. And then with y'all's feedback, we're going to interview a prop expert or maybe two and talk to them about what we should be running, what we should be looking for based upon different applications. And by the way, this isn't just a bass boat conversation, okay? This is a runabout conversation. This is a ski boat conversation. We can all learn from this. My intent here is to learn about props and then learn about props for my boat. But I think it'll be a journey we'll all enjoy together. So stick around. Part 2 will be up here very shortly. Thanks, guys.